The rain hadn't stopped for 5 days. It painted the streets of Portland in a film of slick filth, reflecting the broken neon signs of shuttered diners and all-night liquor stores. The city felt like it was decomposing in slow motion. And somewhere in that rot, a nightmare had started. At exactly 3:03 a.m., a jogger cutting through Cathedral Park stumbled upon what he first thought was a pile of garbage or a collapsed tent. He approached only because he saw what looked like a foot protruding from the mess. When he got close enough, the realization struck. The foot was bare, pale, and splattered with dark patches of coagulated blood. He stepped back and fumbled for his phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. The first responders arrived within minutes, but what they found under the mossy stone arch of the bridge would stay burned into their minds forever. The body was seated upright against a crumbling wall. The victim's face had been removed, peeled off like a mask, revealing raw, glistening muscle and cracked bone. His tongue had been yanked from his mouth and driven through one of his own eye sockets, a grotesque spike. His arms were sawed off and placed on his lap, hands still clenched. The ends of the severed limbs were wrapped in wire, holding them in place like gruesome props. Flies buzzed in the cold rain. The stomach, sliced wide open and pinned back with surgical clamps, displayed a horrifying cavity, empty. The ribs had been cracked and pried open. All internal organs were removed, replaced with a collection of items, photographs of children, some mutilated, a crucifix soaked in blood, and a child's music box that still played a haunting lullaby. And on the stomach, carved deep and filled with salt, was the same spiraling glyph. It looked as if it had been burned in, then sliced around for good measure. Detective Corvin Hale and his partner Mira Keswick arrived at the scene just before sunrise. The glow of emergency lights danced over the water and cast broken shadows under the bridge. Corvin was tall, gaunt, with a permanent 5 o'clock shadow and sharp gray eyes that always looked tired, like he hadn't slept since 2002. Mira was younger, lean, with dark hair pulled into a severe bun and a surgical way of observing everything, always quiet but rarely missing a detail. Corvin lit a cigarette under the arching span, shielding it from the drizzle. "Jesus," he muttered, smoke drifting from his lips. "This is not just murder," Mira said, crouching beside the body, her flashlight scanning the scene. "It's theater," Corvin replied. "The killer's not in a hurry. This took time. Control." She pointed to the spiral. "He wants to be understood." Over the next few days, they combed the city for leads. No ID. No prints. No witnesses. The victim had no face, no fingerprints, no tongue. It was as if the killer wanted to erase his identity, remove his humanity entirely. Then, 3 days later, a janitor at St. Joseph's Cathedral stumbled upon a second body. This one was staged more grotesquely. The victim, a young woman in her early 20s, was suspended in midair by fishing lines threaded through her skin, hanging like a human marionette. Her flesh had been peeled away in strips from her limbs, exposing the twitching muscles beneath. The pieces of skin hung around the church nave like ribbons, drying in the open air. Her mouth had been ripped open at the sides, forming a sickening rictus grin. Dozens of sewing needles pinned the corners of her lips in place. Her eyes had been removed and replaced with antique brass buttons. Her stomach bore the same glyph, though this time, it had been etched with shards of stained glass, dug in and embedded like mosaic art. Myra's hands were shaking slightly as she photographed the scene. "He's escalating," she said. "No," Corvin said, staring up at the girl. "He's preaching." A third body appeared a week later. This time, it was in a dentist's office. Dr. David Lahrens was found strapped to his own patient chair. His jaw was broken wide open and forced apart with a metal spreader. His teeth had been extracted while he was alive. The gums were torn and bleeding, revealing raw pink meat beneath. Each tooth was arranged on the floor into a spiral, the same symbol. Corvin examined the scene with a grimace. "The tools," Mira whispered. "He used the man's own instruments." The victim's tongue had been removed and pinned to the wall with a dental pick. Notes were scrawled in blood across the ceiling tiles. I cannot speak. I cannot lie. I see you. 2 more murders followed, each more grotesque, each more creatively horrifying. A librarian was found in her archive, her body contorted into a fetal position inside a burnt metal filing cabinet. Her torso had been hollowed out, the organs boiled and used to write on the walls. A message was left beside her skull. Let the dead whisper. You turn the page. A nightclub bouncer was discovered crucified to a bathroom stall. His torso was opened vertically from throat to navel. Intestines had been arranged like cursive script across the mirror. See me now? Each time, the killer left behind no fingerprints, no DNA, no usable footage. But every victim had one thing in common, the glyph. Mira began cross-referencing jury records. A strange pattern emerged. All victims had served on the same 2007 jury for a man named Aldrich Penz. Aldrich had been accused of torturing and mutilating his stepdaughter. Evidence was lost. Witnesses disappeared. He was acquitted. Corvin's face hardened. Someone's finishing what the system wouldn't. They traced Penz to a small town in Washington. He was living under an alias, working nights as a hospital janitor. When they knocked, the door creaked open. Inside, hell. The walls were coated with blood. Spinal fluid had been painted into the spiral. Penz's corpse lay in the center, crucified to a wheelchair. His eyes had been replaced with marbles. His jaw sewn shut with piano wire. A speaker played a recording on loop. See what you did. See what you let happen. Then the killer vanished. For weeks. Until Mira was taken. Corvin received a text, coordinates. No words. Just the spiral emoji. He followed them into the forest. Deep. Past all paths. Into an old tunnel entrance to a forgotten drainage system. Inside, flickering candlelight revealed Mira strapped to an altar of bone and stone. Her mouth was sewn shut. Her fingers broken one by one. Eyes wide with fear. Blood pooled beneath her. And there, in the shadows, stood Bryn Morvain. He wore a robe made of human skin. Spirals covered every inch of his body, carved and scarred over again and again. He held a scalpel, smiling. You came, he whispered. Corvin raised his gun. Step away. I am the teacher, Bryn said. Pain is the only purity left. He lunged. Corvin fired. The bullet shattered his shoulder, but Bryn kept moving. He screamed as he charged, but another bullet caught him in the throat. As he collapsed, he whispered, I only opened the door. There are others. Mira survived. Barely. But the spiral appeared again. Another city. Another killing. A new glyph. The crimson symbol lives on. The door is still open. And something darker waits behind it.